According to the Business Development Bank of Canada, the coming decade will belong to employees. The laws of supply and demand will put employees in charge of who they will work for. That's because there will be more jobs than appropriate talent. Companies will be in search of talented staff. The most effective way to attract the best and brightest will be to provide a workplace that embraces and stays current with technology, is socially and environmentally responsible, is inclusive, that produces goods and services of value, and has built a corporate culture that supports and celebrates the team. These concepts have been floating around for more than a decade. In principle, they make sense. Making them a reality within your company is another matter. The guidebook is still being written. We invited executive coach Ron Bremner to join us for a conversation that matters about the role of leadership in building and sustaining a corporate culture for the 21st century.
Conversations That Matter is a partner program for the Centre for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you.
Welcome.
Good to be with you.
We're living in an interesting time in an employee-employer relationship basis. The Business Development Bank suggests there are going to be way more jobs than there will be people working in the next decade. So how important then is it that companies create working environments that give the people who work for them a sense of fulfillment and contribution?
Well, I think it's very important. I've said for a long time, CEO doesn't just stand for Chief Executive Officer. I really believe that it stands for Chief Environmental Officer, because I think the environment that the CEO sets from the top really has a big part to play in not only the success of the company and the bottom line, but the success of the company as a culture, as a place that people want to be. And when you say that it's going to be tougher and tougher to attract good people all the time, you sure want to be able to create the culture where people want to go to every day, because they're going to spend, in many cases, more time with their company family than with their own family. So it's important to have a place that people feel appreciated, they feel wanted, and they feel like they're making a good contribution.
What does that culture look like? What are the elements of a culture that ends up being the place I want to call my home away from home?
Well, I think there's a misconception that if you create a good culture, that what you're doing is creating a soft landing for people, that where they can just kind of ease off and take it easy and go someplace and just kind of semi-retire. I think the reality is most people that I've met and most people that I've worked with in my career really want to work, but they want to work in an environment where they feel like they're making a contribution and where that contribution is respected and where that contribution is really, important in the day-to-day life of the company. So I think it's about trying to create a place where people want to be, where people feel like they're part of accomplishing an overall goal and task that is important, and they feel like their little position, whatever that position is important in that mix, that it's an important part of the equation, that they matter. And I think that's a big responsibility for senior management and let's say leadership today. There's an old saying, managers do things right, but leaders do the right thing. And I think from a leadership standpoint, the people at the top of the organization need to do the right thing, not only for the economics of the company, but for the people in the company.
When I first entered the workplace, the mantra was, the reason we're in business is to make money. Full stop. In other words, the responsibility of the people who ran the company was to turn a profit, and that in turn would drive an organization. Now, we still have to do that, but that's no longer enough.
Obviously, it's vital that the company is healthy from the bottom line standpoint. Economic hardship makes cowards of us all. And when companies are in tough times economically, they cut corners. They let good people go, they let good ideas go, because they just focus on making enough to get by. But companies that are healthy on the bottom line, companies that are exciting to be a part of, are terrific places to be. But you need to be able to balance that bottom line health and that bottom line excitement by making the workplace exciting for people too. And you say, well, how do you make it exciting for somebody to show up every day and do their job? Well, I think that's part of your challenge as a CEO, that you've got to get around and meet those people and get them excited about being where they are and give them a reason and a purpose for being a part of that organization.
Got to get you to hang on for a second while we take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
We hear a tremendous amount about, what are the ethics and what is the corporate culture and responsibility platform or program of this company? So how important is it that as far as the overall culture is concerned, those elements are there, or do they come out of having the right culture?
It all goes hand in hand. I was very fortunate in my career and had the opportunity to work at CKNW Radio and BCTV, and the commonality in that connection was the Griffiths family. And they took very seriously the fact that bottom line profits were important, but it was also important not only to make money, but to make a difference, and make a difference in the community, and do the right thing. CKNW Orphans Fund, BCTV Food for Friends, on and on and on. It was so apparent that those two organizations were so big in the community, and not only this community of Vancouver, but the community of BC at large, to be able to go out and do things, to be able to help others who weren't in a position to help themselves.
As an outsider, you can look at those activities as feel-good programs. Did it actually make a difference in the way the company was able to perform as a business, and also to attract the kind of people you wanted to join the company? To be involved in the Variety Club, the Orphans Fund, Canuck Place, and all the other causes that both BCTV and CKNW supported and continue to do so, did it actually make a difference?
I think you've got to believe that it's part of your DNA and you're doing the right thing. If you look for a day-to-day return on that investment, if you look for a day-to-day payback, you're probably not going to get it. It's like doing the right things in life. You don't always get a payback right away because you do something for somebody or do the right thing or send in $50 donation to help somebody who's had a tough time in a fire or whatever it may be. But the reality is, it's part of who you are. It's part of what you're about. It's part of what you believe in. And I really believe that there is a connection between a lot of the great success that CKNW had and BCTV had as a direct result of a lot of the good things that they did in the community. Not just because they did great broadcasting, which they did, and great reporting, which they did, and uncovered great stories, which they did, but they helped people by doing a lot of great things behind the scenes that people will never know about. Even those of us who were at the stations in responsible positions at the top who were helping direct some of that stuff that we'll never know about. But we have enough evidence and got enough feedback in letters and phone calls and things from people who could never say enough good things about the kind of effect we had on those people and their lives and situations that they were in.
So what are those essential elements that contribute to that sense of job satisfaction and a sense of meaning? The sense that this is the organization I want to align myself with, spending my days at and helping to build a company that can make a difference. What are your top 10 components that matter, that become the building blocks of that corporate culture?
Well, I think probably one of the biggest is caring. And people want to feel, there's someone once told me, before you tell people how much you know, show them how much you care. And people admire and respect how much people know, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And that's really important.
So how does that manifest itself in a working environment where I have a job, I have to get this done, I have to produce X number of components? How do you express that, especially in an environment that has a couple hundred staff?
Well, I think you do it by having a great sensitivity and having an antenna to go around and catch people doing things right, to be able to be out there and to be able to be aware of what your people are doing, not only what your people are doing from a job performance standpoint, not only what they did with respect to that project or this issue or this particular problem that you had in the workplace, but what your attitude is, how you are as a teammate, what kind of enthusiasm you're bringing, that little extra effort. Going the extra mile is really important, and it's never crowded on the extra mile because a lot of people don't go that extra mile, okay? So finding people doing those extra things, but not only noticing it, by recognizing it, dropping a little note, leaving them a voicemail, walking up to them, making eye contact with them, telling them how important it is, the kind of work that they're doing, telling them how their job and how that little thing that they thought was a little thing actually turned into a big thing and is very important. Making people feel appreciated, helping people to understand that they may not be the star right winger on the hockey team. They may be someone who runs the Zamboni, but you know what? If the Zamboni isn't running properly and the ice isn't good, then that star performer can't perform the best. Somebody who makes great popcorn, somebody who does little things that other people don't take the time to notice, but they're absolutely critical to the overall product.
Oh, I hear what you're saying, and I can also hear people who are listening or watching this conversation saying, but that's a lot of work. I have other responsibilities that I have to, as the manager, pay attention to. You're telling me I'm supposed to go around catching people in the act of doing things right and then acknowledging that. When am I going to have time to do the work that I have to do? You
got to make the time. It's as simple as that. That kind of management, that MBWA management by walking around, it isn't easy. It takes time, it takes focus, it takes dedication, it takes concentration and focus, but you have to make it a part of who you are and what you do, and if you don't, you'll pay the price later on. You're either going to put the time in at the front end and do those things, or you're going to put the time in at the back end managing the issues that arise and the problems that come to bear for not doing it. So there's no shortcut.
This is our second break. We'll be back in a moment.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
And then the other response is, you're too nice. You're always telling me nice things, and there are people who feel they'll get walked on by some staff who are going to take advantage of that niceness, or they will be skeptical and not believe you.
Well, you know, that will happen, and from time to time, you're going to get taken advantage of. But for the 2 or 3% of the time that you may get taken advantage of, the other 97 or 98% is well worth it. Most people treat you the way you treat people, and if you go out of your way to look after people, and if you go out of your way to be able to treat people with respect, and you go out of your way to be able to treat people like you'd want to be treated, usually the returns are there. You're always going to get people who are skeptical. You're always going to get people that are doubters. You're always going to get people that are going to say they're only doing that because there's something in it for them. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, you can't live your life just worried about the skeptics. You've got to do what you think is right, and you've got to do it every day. And if you can do that, I think you're going to be happy with the result.
Is every day the essential component in that?
Consistency is the key in anything. You know, good work is not a once-in-a-while thing. It's got to be an everyday thing. Coming to work with the right effort, the right attitude. And look, everybody's going to have bad days. You know, when I was CEO of the Calgary Flames, I had bad years. Okay, we used to have victory parties when we tied. The things weren't always easy. But the reality is, you need to keep coming back and keep doing the same things day after day after day if you're going to have success. It doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, caring. It's at the top of the list. What comes next?
That word that you just said is caring with consistency. It can't be today, it can't be tomorrow, it's got to be every day. You only do those things on days that end in a Y, okay? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Very important to be able to have that consistency. And the ability to be able to tap in down the line so that people understand at every level that leaders are needed. You need leadership at every level if you're going to be successful, okay? And the other thing is, you can't take yourself too seriously. You need to be able to have a sense of humor. You need to be able to know that when you've got a big job and you've got a great position and you're a CEO, don't start reading your own press clippings. So you've got to put everything in perspective and know that when you've got a big job, you've got a responsibility. And you've got a responsibility to be able to treat people the way you'd want to be treated if you didn't have that big job.
So for an organization to get better at what it does, there has to be a constant improvement in skill sets. How do you create an environment that doesn't come across as being nitpickish and in some ways counterproductive? Because for the longest time, and I think there are still companies that do this, they'd have annual reviews, and the annual review would focus on what employees' shortcomings were, what they needed to improve, rather than celebrate what they did well. My sense is that this is a demoralizing experience for so many employees who give it their all. And then they go into this job review and later learn the company believes it can't give you too good of a performance review because otherwise they'll have to give you a raise that they feel they can't afford. So how do you create that culture that says, I'm going to help you improve your skill set so that you're more fulfilled and enriched and the company benefits through your success?
That ties right in with when you're talking about the C's, Stu. I think the other C comes in, which is absolutely vital in all this, which is communicate. Communication is absolutely essential to be able to have the kind of relationship you want, whether it's with another individual, whether it's with a department, or whether it's your entire workforce. So I'm not a believer in someone in those things about just having an annual review. I think you need to be reviewing people all the time. And not a sit-down formal review that's an hour, but, checking in with them, communicating with them, letting them know how they're doing, not just once a year, but all the time. When you see things that are happening, being honest with them. When they're doing well and when they're doing things that you really like, let them know. But by the same token, don't shy away from those difficult discussions. As I like to say, difficult discussions aren't like red wine. They don't get better the longer you leave them. So you need to be able to sit down with people and balance off to your other point where you say, where does it, if you're nice to people, if you're saying good things to people, if you're making them feel good, isn't it phony? Well, yeah, it is if that's all you're doing. But if you're giving them honest, open feedback, which says, yeah, I really like this, but you know what? This is an area that you need to work on. This is an area you need to think about. This is where we need you to be better. This is why we need you to be better in this area. Then that balances off. And people, my experience is, people appreciate that. People respect that. Why? Because you're giving them something that most people don't give them, which is your time. And when you give people your time, that's the most important thing you can give them.
In a work environment, you get pretty intimate with people over time, and it's not uncommon to shortcut communication, as so frequently happens in those close relationships. You get into the habit of going sort of straight to the heart of the matter, and at times forget some of the elements of respectful communication. Now, you talk about this respectful communication as being important. I'm wondering also, how important is it to also keep in mind your long-term objectives? Does doing so allow you to, afford you the opportunity to see the impact of what you're about to say in the moment and its connection to the overall goals of the organization and your relationship with that employee?
Well, I'll give you an example. For example, today, it's more difficult than ever because we've got all these tools at our hand to be able to have instantaneous communication with people. When I'm working with people, senior executives across the country, coaching them, one of the things that we talk about is I see all the time and get feedback that people who are in management positions, they see somebody doing something right, they send them a text. They sit 9 feet away from them, but they don't get up, walk over and say, Ed, Barbara, Lisa, terrific job on that presentation. They send them an email, they send them a text. There's nothing like face-to-face communication to be able to see the emotion, to be able to feel the excitement, to be able to share that, either that good thing or that disappointment that you're feeling. So I think one of the things that we got to get back to as much as possible is not texting, not emailing, where we can, get up out of that chair, walk that 10, 15 minutes, or 10 or 15 feet, or walk down the hall or wherever it is, and let people know face-to-face, how things are going. I think that makes a big impact.
Third and final break, promise. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
Well, it does, but I also want to finish off on this point. I think you have to have that long-term objective, as in, what is the nature of my relationship with this person, and what is it that we are jointly trying to achieve?
So I think what you need to be able to do is sit down, have that understanding with them. Where can I help you? As a senior executive, I think one of the biggest responsibilities that you have is to be able to take the speed bumps out of their career. How can you help them get what they want, not just what you need as a company? How do you help them become more fulfilled? How do you help them become more successful? What is success to them? What does a successful career look like? What do they want to do? Do they want to take a course? Do they want to get better at this? Can you help them with something that's not directly pertaining to their job per se, but helps them feel more fulfilled as an individual?
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go for my next point. How do you make somebody who feels like they're lower down on the organizational chart feel like their role is as important as everyone else?
First thing you do is pay attention to them, because the most important thing that you can give them is some attention. Let them know. I think you and I shared a story when I first started my first day as CEO at the Calgary Flames, and I drove into the parking lot. And a big guy in a yellow jacket stopped me. He didn't know who I was. Put my window down. He said, "Sorry, you can't park here. This is for executive parking." I gave him my card. He got embarrassed and he wasn't sure what was going to happen. I put the car in park. I got out. I said, "Ed, listen, what's your job?" He said, "Well, my job is I run the parking lot." I said, "I'm just giving you a promotion right now." He said, "Well, what is it?" And he got all excited. I said, "Don't worry, there's no raise with it." But I said, you're my vice president of first impressions. And I want you to remember that, because everything starts in the parking lot. And if a couple with their kids come here for a hockey game and spend $300-400 on tickets and food and beverages and the whole deal, if they get a bad experience in the parking lot, and then if they go to the will call to get their tickets and Janet hasn't got the tickets ready, and then they go to the popcorn stand and Ed isn't making good popcorn, the whole night starts to go awry. And it doesn't matter if we win 3-1, and based on most of our performances, we weren't going to win 3-1. So it was important that all elements of that experience be good. And everybody has a part to play in that. Whether you're in the parking lot, whether you're cleaning the washrooms, doesn't matter what you're doing. It's a matter of recognizing that, understanding that, and letting them know that you appreciate their contribution, that everything that they do has a part to play in a winning organization.
We're talking about human beings interacting with human beings. Ron, thanks for this.
Absolutely. Great to be with you.